Oh, I'm Wilburn Jimmy Hall. You're watching Channel 98, the Letcher County Government Channel. And we are inside Studio B today with Mr. Roger Hall. Roger,
Hello.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
It's good to be here.
We always start out the first question. Tell us when you were born and where you were born and a little bit about your early life, your schooling, and so forth.
Okay. Well, as you know, I'm Roger Hall. I was born in the Pine Creek section of Mayking in 1951. And I found something really interesting yesterday. I've been going down to the pharmacy, and the first question they would ask you is, what's your birthday? I'd say 1/9/51. And yesterday I got tangled up somehow, and I said 1951. And then I thought about it, and I said, you know, that's right. My birthday's redundant, 1/9/51.
What about that?
Yeah, I thought, well, that's interesting. But anyway, I was born in 1951. We had 4 boys and a girl, and they were all older than me. I was the last one to come along, and I was, as the old song on the radio, I was the baby, and
right.
So I grew up kind of sheltered and probably given more opportunities than the rest of the family, and I ended up staying here in Letcher County and making my living here. When I got to be 5 years old, my mother put me in school, and at that time you should have been 6, but I was, school started in August, and I was 5 years old in the following January, so she stuck me in there anyway. And I cried every day because I had to go to school. Actually, she would have to walk me to school. She'd walk me all the way to the schoolyard.
Yeah.
And then she'd turn around and go back home. But she wouldn't walk me to the schoolyard. She'd walk me to the curve. Now you go on. So I'd go on. And if I got in the schoolyard, fine. Okay. Everything's fine and dandy. But there were several times that she walked me there, and I got to the curve, and she said, now go on. And I went, and for some reason she didn't watch me. And the time she got home, I was home too. So she had to bring me back. And it went on like this for a few months, and one day in school, I don't know what the purpose was or what brought it up, but the teacher found out that I wasn't 6 years old.
Oh.
And she told me, we're going to have to not let you come to school. You can't come to school. You're not old enough.
Oh.
And I cried because they told me that. So you just couldn't satisfy me any way in the world. And the remarkable thing is that you'll find out later that what my life career consisted of.
Okay.
But anyway, this was Pine Creek School, and I went there, I can't remember if it was 2 years or 3 years, but at one point, I know in the 2nd grade, my mother took me to Mayking.
Yeah.
We lived kind of in the dividing line, lived about half a mile up on Pine Creek. They had a school about a mile, almost a mile, but probably a little over half a mile away. And then there was a school at Mayking, a half a mile away.
Yeah.
And so the next year she said, I'm just going to take you down Mayking and put you in Mayking.
Yeah.
All my brothers and sisters went to Pine Creek, but I don't know why she wanted me to go to Mayking, but she took me down there and they told me that I wasn't in that district. And they sent me back home, and so I went back to Pine Creek the next year.
Wow.
And the year after that, for some reason, they allowed me in. I have no idea. Anyway, from the third grade or 4th grade, I continued to go to school at Mayking Grade School, there up on the hill at the cemetery. After grade school, I graduated out of the 8th grade and went to school at Whitesburg High School. I started in Whitesburg High School in 1964, and I graduated in 1968. And then after graduation, like everybody else, I tried my luck in other places. I ran off. My whole family had run off. Most of them had settled in Indiana, so I went up there and I found me a little job and worked around a little while. I really didn't like it too well. I kind of liked the place and the area and all that, and they paid a little more money, but they didn't pay a whole lot back then. And I got to searching around and thinking one day, I got to talking to the guys I worked with. I worked at a place called Diamond Chain in Indianapolis. And I got to talking to all the guys I was working with in there, how long you been here? And I said, well, I've been here 15 years. How much money you make? I make $4.25 an hour. And I said, whoa, that's not long. Well, much is it? And so I kept continuing to think about coming back home. And I thought, well, there's not a lot to do back there. That's why everybody moved off, so you didn't have any opportunities.
Right.
But then I thought, well, if I'm going to be stuck in this place, which I didn't think about advancement or going to other places at the time, but just looking at what I had, I said, if I'm going to be stuck in this place, I might as well just go back home. There's nothing there. There's plenty to do up here. I can't afford it. Nothing much there to do. I won't have the money to do it. What's the difference? I like it there.
That's true.
So I came home one weekend. I had the job. I had worked quite a bit. As a matter of fact, they told me the weekend I come home, I was working the midnight shift, and they said they put me on I was on what was called a ton punch press for a while. That night they just happened to shift me over to an assembly line thing and told me, said, now, man on the job for the first night, you have produced more than anybody else that's ever done here.
Okay.
So when I got home, I celebrated by staying. I didn't go back.
Okay.
And they got me a job at a service station down at Mayking. You also used to call just before the straight stretch there, the Gulf Station there on the right now. I think it's still in operation. But I got me a job there, and I worked 3 days. And during those 3 days, I would have to go to Weisberg, and I talked to Hoover Dahlher, and he hired me to work in the department store.
Okay.
I thought, this is going to be grand. I'm going to be working in a department store.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that meant sweeping the floors and
firing
the furnace and stocking the shelves and then going over to the furniture store and delivering furniture and everything but selling. So I worked there for about 6-7 months and had the opportunity to go back to college and did so on a part-time basis and began to get my college hours and looked into a degree and there were several of us that did this. There was 3 of us that worked there for Mr. Dahlher, and we went to college 3 days a week, and we worked for the Dahlher family for 3 days a week, and that got us our start. And after that, well, not after that, I guess, before that, I was drafted into the United States Army.
Oh.
And so I went on a tour for that. And I really enjoyed those years, but I'm sure I'm glad they were behind me.
Right.
I had a very easy job. I got into a branch of the service that was a classified branch, and really lived in a community. They sent me to Germany, and I lived in a community, and they rented a hotel and put us all in one hotel, and we worked on top of a mountain, and it was really interesting stuff, and I really enjoyed doing the job.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back here in Studio B with Mr. Roger Hall, and we took him in 10 minutes from Mayking to Germany. So can you go from there and tell us a little bit about what happened, Roger?
Sure enough. I got in Germany, and the interesting thing was the fact that they fly you in, and you come into one central point, and that was in Frankfurt in the Rhein-Main airport, and there they look at your papers and tell you what you're going to do, and you know, if I could have read that stuff, I would have known, but I had no idea, even to the point when I got there, and they lined us all up in lines, and they would look at the papers as one went through, and you could hear everybody, you know. It's an open room like this right there, and the line was over there, and they would say, they'd look at this guy's papers that was in front of you, and they'd say, they had all these trucks parked outside. You was walking out toward the outside entrance, and you could see all these trucks. And there was 5, 6 different trucks out there, or maybe 8 or 10, I don't know. And 3 big luxury buses sitting on the end. And every time a guy walk up, they look at that paper and they'd say, you go that truck, you go that truck, you go that truck, you go that truck, you go that bus. Every 10 or 12 people, they'd put on one of them luxury buses down there. And I said, wonder why they get to go to those buses and all those other people are going to those trucks. I know what it is in them trucks. They get up there and they haul around like cattle, but what goes on with them buses, you know? And so they start again. You go that truck, you go that truck, you go that truck, you go that bus. Well, I finally got up there and handed them mine. They said, you go that bus. Now I get to find out what that bus was about. Right? And the most interesting thing, they put me on that bus, and I mean, we had just left Fort Dix, New Jersey about midnight, 11 o'clock or midnight the night before. Well, you know, there's like 6 hours ahead of us, and we landed there at 9:30, and by 11:30 I was on that bus heading down the road somewhere, and rode that bus all day long. All day long. And I said, when is this going to stop? Ever so often they'd go by one of these facilities, you know, Army facilities, and they'd drop a few people off. But not me. They would call your name off, you get off the bus. Not me. And I went, and I went, and I went. And the interesting thing was, here I am in Germany, and I'm looking around, and we were on the interstate, the Autobahn, as they call it.
Autobahn, yeah.
And there was one place that must really be famous, because every so often I saw that name on the sign. At that time I didn't know it meant exit. But I found that out later. Anyway, we were from 11 o'clock that morning to, next thing you know, at 8 o'clock that night, me and 3 other guys were the only ones on that bus. And finally, at 8 o'clock that night, they dropped us off. They said, all right, now, you guys report over to so-and-so. So we did that and walked in, and the guy looked at us, and he said, well, go over there and get your place to stay. You will not report to work till Monday morning, and you're on your own between now and Monday morning. Well, lo and behold, we had a good time. Then come Monday morning, we were assigned to wherever we go. Well, they told us that they put 3 of us that had came together, and they put 3 of us working in the one place. And they said, now look, only one of you is going to stay here. The other 2 of you is going to be going somewhere else.
Wow.
Well, where will we be going? Oh, it's just a place that you'll love. So every time we send somebody up there, I said, nobody ever wants to come back. I said, what do you mean, you don't hear from them anymore? No, they're happy there. How can they be any happier there than I am here right now, you know? And, well, it went for about 5 or 6 days. And they sent us over for an interview. Now, they sent 3 of us. They said, and the big question after interviewing us, each one of us, they said, well, the people that we want to send to this place, this is a great place. I said, everybody's happy that's sent there. I said, how do you know? They don't come back. And he said, well, they just are. I said, but it takes some, we need somebody that is really different, I guess. I don't know what it is. We want somebody that wants to go. We don't want somebody send somebody that don't want to go. And we want somebody that's basically, we'd rather have a single person because, there's not a lot. Once again, not a lot to do there. And so we don't want married people up there and blah 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 and this and that and the other. So we want somebody that just. So there were 3 of us, and one of them was single, and 2 of us were married at the time. And they asked the single guy, I said, "You want to go?" He said, "Yeah, man, I want to go." They asked. No. The single guy said, "No, man, I don't want to go."
Oh.
The married man said, "Yeah, I want to go." They looked at me and said, "How about you?" I said, "I don't care."
Good answer.
Well, now that was at 11:30. Guess who got their orders at 2 o'clock to ship out? Because I had such a happy attitude.
Yeah.
So then we just went on up there, and I really loved it there, to tell the truth about it. Really did.
What did they do there?
Huh?
What did they do there?
Not much of anything. They're still on the truth.
Yeah.
It was a security agency deployment.
Oh.
And they actually, we were located on the East German border, 3 kilometers from the border, and they did some intelligence is what I guess they called it at that time.
Okay. We're going to take another short break. We'll be back momentarily. We're back inside Studio B with Roger Hall, and we took him over to Germany for a spell. And when you came back, I understand that you taught school at Letcher County.
Yes, I actually, when I first came back, I had not yet finished my college, and I went back to college I liked a year and a half, and I went back to college on the GI Bill and got my degree in teaching of history and political science. And when that was over, I got a job as a teacher in Letcher County school system in 1976. And from 1976 to 2003, I taught at Letcher High School. I taught history and geography and economics and world history, taught American history for the entire career that I was there, a class of American history, and then the others were electives that were added in. And in 2003, I retired from there. I really enjoyed teaching, and I really enjoyed teaching at Letcher High School. The area, the community of the people there were like family. The kids at that time, they got together, they got along together really well in that community. Of course, they did draw some outside people from Line Fork for a while, but once those people got used to having left their school, because they were forced out of their school over there, and so anytime you're forced out of your school, you got some resentment, but it wasn't shown too bad, except that it took them a long time to kind of infiltrate into the Letcher community, but once they did, it was a great place to teach. We had a great number of students, and we also had some great teachers there. If you recall, Beulah Back taught there. Jack Reed Hall was taught there at the time that I started there. We had The principal when I began was D.C. Taylor, and Cheryl Sloan had taken over as assistant principal. And when I went to Letcher School, they told me I had some big shoes to fill. You probably know this guy, Zeke Jones from Millstone. He was the teacher there. He taught the history class. I come down there and they said, buddy, you got some big shoes to fill here. And Zeke was, at that time, got the principalship at Neon, I believe it was. And that's how I ended up with my job there. And after settling in there, I really enjoyed teaching. I think most of the kids there enjoyed my classes. I was kind of what was known as a hard-nosed teacher, and everybody tried to
impress you,
dodge my class, much like I did Gerald Fraser at Whitesburg,
right?
When I went to Whitesburg School. And but when my first year there, the best experience that anybody could have is to see how quick these people are going to jump into classes they don't know nothing about. And so since I was a new teacher that come there, I looked up one day, and the first day when everybody registered, I had people sitting around the walls. All the seats were full. People were sitting around the walls. They were standing up, and I said, "How am I going to handle this?" And then I looked at it, and I said, I pulled my first big bluff, I guess you want to call it. I looked at them, and I said, "Now in this class, you're going to have to write 3 term papers, and give 5 speeches, and do a couple other things." The next day, I had 10 seats empty. So that pretty well took care of that problem. And from that point on, everybody considered me, that I meant all that, and nobody wanted to take my class, but they had to. I was teaching required classes, and they had to. But by the time the students sit in my classes, by the time they were done, they thoroughly enjoyed it. Right. I had one student tell their parent, and the parent referred back to me and said, my daughter told me that when she got your class, she thought you were the most foolish man that ever lived. And one day she listened to what you said, and she really likes your class. So I don't know, it's all depends on people. But I enjoyed that. I was senior sponsor for, I would say, about 19 years, and I began as senior sponsor. I came in and they made me senior sponsor. I had no idea what that was all about, and so I just kind of laid back and let the other people take it over. Linda Jarrett and Stella Ison and Jack Hall were senior sponsors, and so I just went through the motions for a while and ended up staying there for the first stint. I guess I was about 16 years, and then I begged off, and they let me off for a while. Then they put me as junior sponsor, and that was taking care of the prom and doing this kind of thing. And I kind of enjoyed that, but that was an interesting time. But I guess I say I probably enjoyed the senior sponsor different, because after about 3 years, they came back and they asked me to join back up, and I did that for about 4 more years. And by that time, I was getting close enough to. We changed principals, and the principal called me and said, "Mr. Hall, said, would you care to be senior sponsor this year since you've already been?" And I said, "Well, I think you should ask somebody else. I've been here long enough." Yeah. But it went about a month and a half, and every day I'd see him, he'd say, "You ready to go to Washington yet?" Well, I ended up taking it over, me and another lady, and we had been taking under the other administration, we had been taking them to Florida. Oh. And so when we came up with the idea of taking them to Washington on this, we had a little bit of rejection. As a matter of fact, the first trip that we took, we had 13 people.
13.
Yeah, and we'd had as many as 46 people go on this trip. And, you know, we were Letcher was a small school, and we had a small senior class all the time. Anyway, about 70 people. And so at that time, we took the 13. We couldn't really afford much. We didn't have any money, hadn't made much money. So the principal drove school bus. We took them on a school bus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we took them on a school bus to Washington, D.C., and I guess had about the best time that we could ever have. Didn't have a lot of people to look after, and we stayed outside Washington, and we brought the bus load of kids into the Metro Center outside of Washington and parked the bus and put them on the Metro and took them in on foot. And we walked around Washington every day on foot. And so we got to see a lot more that way.
Sure.
And so we enjoyed that. And then about 2003, I decided that I'd had enough. And I retired, and then I picked up on another phase of what I wanted to do with myself. So.
But you really enjoyed your teaching years.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We're going to take another break. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back inside Studio B with Roger Hall. And Roger, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about some of the things, you know, that you're doing for Letcher County. And you had a program, I believe, one time called Down Memory Lane.
Yes. Well, when I retired from school teaching, I picked up a hobby. I've always been nostalgic, and I've always wanted time to be able to look things up and do things of that nature. So I took my first freedoms of going down to the library and going through the old newspapers and reading about what has happened in Letcher County throughout the years. And I did this for about maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Just go down a couple of days a week and look through and read and catch up on this. And all the things that's in it, you know, kind of astounded me how things were back then, and the people that lived here, and who they were, and where they lived. And to me, it's very interesting. And what I would do is, I got to thinking about, if I like this, I'm sure others do too. And so I came up with an idea to create a program. Now, what I do is, what I do, what I want to do, and what this phase of my life is about, is creating and production work. I end up being the broadcaster, the whatever, the host of the program, because, you know, it's a one-man job. I tried getting other people to come in. I said, I want to create this, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I'd like for you to broadcast it for me. But I couldn't afford to pay a whole lot. They didn't have enough time to go in for the people that I asked. And so in order to make it happen, had to do it myself.
Okay.
So the first thing that I did was, I had some people that asked me one time, would you, have you got some music? Now, I've got a great library of music, and if they were having a class reunion, have you got some music? And so from that idea, and this was the class of 1959, and from that idea, I said, yeah, I got some music. And then I went down and created a history of that class.
Oh.
I took the newspaper and I started on their first day of school, and I found out the events and the people in the area and what was happening at the time that they were seniors in high school, beginning on their first day of class all the way up through their graduation. And then I would incorporate in that their names and the things that they did, anything that I could find and could personally dig up. that I could put into that presentation. I did this in conjunction with Clyde Stanley at Hometown.
Yeah.
I had him produce it at that time because I didn't have the equipment and stuff to produce it with.
Right.
And so we put this together, and I was allowed to sell these, and these were CDs. These were not DVDs at the time. And I did it like a radio program. And so that was a success, even though some people thought, why are you doing this? Well, number one, I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it.
Right.
Number two, I want others to hear it, or I wouldn't be, putting it out here for everybody. So I have created, from that beginning, over 300 weeks of information on Letcher County over the years. And what I did was, sitting in the library doing this, but this was before I started the Down Memory Lane, and from that I jumped off to Down Memory Lane. I said, well, if I like this, they would too. And what I would do is I would take a corresponding week of the time period it is now. Like this is the 4th week of June, 2012. And I would say, okay, I'm going to create this program. 4th week of June, 1968. Every week I would pull out a different year. It'd be the corresponding week and the corresponding month of the time it is now, but it would be an earlier year. And the reason I did this is I said, well, other people like this, but I'm sure, up until I was retired and had the time, I didn't have time to go to the library and search this stuff out. So when I began doing this and taking this information down, the first thing I would do is research the paper and write the information down that I wanted to put into this program. And it takes over 3 hours for me to sit and read a newspaper and take the information down. Then I go home and I sit and write it out. So I write the program myself, I research it, I write it. Once I've written it, I write it in the form that I want to present it. Okay, I mean it's already written. It's written history, but I put it in the form. I think they call that the word. I forgot the word for that. Compilation. Put it in a compilation form, and then once I get that written out, or I type it out. Well, I'm not a good type. I'm a little better now than I was several years ago. And this began about 2005. And I typed that out. It takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours for me to type it out. Then after I type it out, I put it on tape. And then after I put it on tape, there's the program. But anyway, what it ends up was this. I sat down and figured out those 3 hours. You're not going to believe this. If you've ever heard the program Down Memory Lane, and a lot of people have heard it because it was on the radio for 4 years, from like 2005 to 2009, somewhere around there. It was on WXKQ radio on Friday mornings right after the swap shop. It's called Down Memory Lane, and I came on and would say, hi, this is Rod, and you're listening to Down Memory Lane. Well, I never did use my name. Rod is the only name I ever used. I never did use Roger. I never did use Roger Hall. I was hidden, it was radio, and took a while for a lot of people to catch on just exactly who was doing it. Some people, however, said, I heard you on radio, and I said, how do you know that was me? And they said, well, you got this voice. I said, thanks a lot. But anyway.
You do have.
Well, yeah, you got a voice that if we hear it one time, we're going to remember it. Okay. So anyway, in doing that 3 hours of work, of research, that hour and a half of writing, and that broadcasting time that it takes to do this was only, how many minutes that ran? A 30-minute program had 12 minutes of information in it.
Yeah.
I gave everybody in Letcher County a breakdown of whatever happened that week that took me 3 hours to read out of the paper in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Doesn't take long when you when you formulate it and you speak it. Words come out easy, I guess. I don't know, but it doesn't take long. But anyway, it started out as a 7-minute program. I went to the radio station and I bought 7 minutes of our time to put this program on. And when I did that, I had to figure out how much it was going to be. So I figured out I wanted to play a song, get a little entertainment. So that's 3 minutes, and I got 4 left. So I had 2 minutes of information and 2 minutes of commercials. And that's what I started out with.
Yeah.
It ended up being a 30-minute program and sometimes ran over from time to time. I ended up 30 minutes. And actually it was called, the first program was called It Happened in Whitesburg.
Oh, okay.
It became down memory lane when I run into people and say, how come you just talk about Whitesburg? You need to talk about Letcher County. So I did. And it became a very popular program. And then after it left the air there, G.C. Kinser, your mayor here in Jenkins, he opened his radio station up here. And for about a year, when he first opened it up, I was on his station. And then I just kind of gave that up and went on with something else. I want to thank at this time, well, I'll do that later, but to keep my story straight, I guess. It became down memory lane, and everybody I saw would say, down memory lane, down memory lane. And I thought, I knew it was a popular lane, but do you realize, and I didn't realize this at the time, by the time that program was over, there's only about a third of the people in Letcher County that actually have ever heard it. And those that hear it, you know, they for a year after it was off, they'd come around and say, heard your program the other day. I said, boy, that's good. They got used to it being on there, and they might have heard it 6 months ago, but they heard it the other day.
Need to get a new radio.
Yeah, so I said, okay. And so from there, I just kind of faded out on that issue, and then up came this idea called the Letcher County Government Channel.
Yeah.
And I don't know who come up with that.
Oh, goodness.
But it's the most interesting thing that I've ever seen for a county. It's run just like a TV station in my notion. If you look at all the other counties around and anything else that's public access, you won't see entertaining programs on there. And but Rick Hall's done a fine job.
Yes.
And he needs plenty of recognition because it's a hard job. A lot of people do not realize how hard it is. Now me, I've told you, doing one little 15-minute program takes hours and hours, and here we've got an individual that's running a complete station.
That's right.
And it's got a schedule.
That's right.
And so it's very effective, and I'm glad to be part of it. He asked me to contribute to it, and I took a long time before I did. And then I said, well, you know, why not? And so I have started doing the same thing with Down Memory Lane on the Letcher County Government Channel, but I changed names.
Okay.
It's called the Letcher County Memories. Your Letcher County Memories. And I do basically, it's a TV program of slides because, believe it or not, this is the first time that anybody has ever seen the face of Rod presenting himself in terms of being Rod. So always it's been, this is Rod, and this is Down Memory Lane, and this is Rod, and this is your Letcher County Memories. And my name is, of course, Roger Hall. Letcher County Memories, I don't use Rod, I use R.L. Hall. which is my initials are RL. And Rick says, now, buddy, you're going to have to change that. Said, everybody's going to think I'm doing that. But I want to give him credit for everything I can.
Right.
But I want to thank him for allowing me, and thank the Letcher County Government Channel for allowing him to bring this and put all this together. This is the greatest thing that could happen in the county. It keeps you up to date on what's going on and all that stuff. Also, a while back, I cornered him one day and I said, how about doing a radio, kind of like a radio show? He said, well, we're already doing that. And I said, no, that's not what I mean. I want to do just a program occasionally. And so we've done our first program, and I'm in the middle of doing the second one now. It's called the Waylon and Willie Show.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's not all about Waylon and Willie. It's the kind of music they brought to the attention of the people back in the 80s. You know, back in the 70s and the 80s and 90s, that led the way for the country music we have today.
Yeah.
At that time, in country music wasn't a big thing.
No.
Until they came along, and then when they came along, all of a sudden country music swept the country. I can remember. I probably started around 1968 with Johnny Cash and Folsom Prison. He came out with that, and some stations began to change their formats to all country. Before that, they might have played a little country, but there wasn't a whole lot of country stations. Next thing you know, here in Letcher County, for many years, all you had was country stations.
Right.
But now it's came back around, and which is fine. But country music has made a turn, but it hadn't been for these pioneer artists.
True.
That went to Nashville and put forth everything that they could to make it, and write songs and do this and do that and sing their own songs and come up. Country music wouldn't be where it is today.
No, it wouldn't.
And speaking of writing songs, I'm also a songwriter.
Oh.
I'm an amateur songwriter, I guess, because I can only brag about one publication, and that's one or two. And that Joe Banks over in Colton, the preacher Joe Banks, he sings too. And on his album Amazing, he has two of my songs that I wrote, and I want to thank him for that. But since 1996, I've been writing songs, and I picked up on trying to learn to play guitar. And the thing that I wanted to do that for more than anything was to help me write the songs, because when I would write a song, it would just come to me.
Yeah.
Words would just straight. I could write a song in 3 minutes, but it had no tune. I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. So, as a matter of fact, I think I had a birthday or something when I was teaching school. And one of the teachers actually bought me a gift. And when they brought it out, they they had notes, musical notes cut out of construction paper in a bucket, and handed it to me and said, here, carry that, will you? Maybe that'll help you out. So, well, anyway, I've been trying to. I've been trying to practice, and yeah, I haven't come of any avail yet, but I'm getting there. I figure by the time I reach my 100th birthday, I might,
decide
get to where I am.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's where I'm at, and that's what I'm doing these days.
Roger, I want you to understand, to me, this is a historical moment. They finally see the face behind the voice of Memory Lane. And so, folks, I probably some of them knew, but some of them are still guessing. So now they know, and I think you've done a lot. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before I leave?
Well, I would like to thank the people that's helped me along the way in this, because this is the life I want. The working part. Someone asked me one time, said, can you why did you take so long to do this? And my answer was that my job got in the way.
Right.
Now I don't have a job, so nothing's in my way, and it's all my fault if I don't do it. But down memory lane and all of this almost failed. I gave up. I gave up after a while. I had two people that I want to thank that at a pivotal moment that said to me, they said, well, how you doing with it? And what are you doing? I said, I'm quitting. I'm not going to, well, we like it. Why don't you just do it for us? Yeah. And those two people are Linda Jarrett and her sister, Nana Kraft. And those two people inspired me to continue and have helped me. They have supported me in my efforts. And they're not the only ones, but they're the ones that at that moment, if it had not been for them, this whole idea of what I do and what I'm trying to do, and which is also is preserving a part of history in another form.
Yes, it is.
Of Letcher County. You have your newspapers now and putting it on audio and DVD. And so I want to thank them. I want to thank everybody that gave me the opportunity to do what I did when I had my Down Memory Lane program, the number of people that sponsored me. I can tell you one thing right now, if you can recall, the Bank of Whitesburg has backed me in everything that I have done. All I have to do, if I went in there tomorrow and said, I've got an idea that I want to do something, from the past of how they've backed me from the past, they would say, okay, Roger.
Yeah.
Mr. Whitaker from the Food World, and he still has one up here at Neon, supported me in everything that I did. And, and then there were several others. The Children's Corporation with the school down there, the daycare. They supported me in everything that I've done. I can just go on and on and on. The people here have been good to me, and so I try and every program that I do now, I try to make better than the program before. Yeah. Sometimes I'll fail, but I try to do that. I want to thank them. I want to thank the Letcher County Government Channel for having this access that I've been able to use and get out, and hopefully I can continue to do more. Like I said, we're working on the Waylon and Willie program that we're going to try to make at least a monthly installment. Right now I'm covered up with stuff, but it's been about 2 months, but I'm halfway through the second program, and I'll continue to do that, and where we highlight country music from the music of the past. And I want to thank you for inviting me here, and Mr. Hodrick Hall, and the judge, and the fiscal court for coming up with this idea and pushing it forward.
I want to thank you for being on the show, and I would like to comment. I've seen some of the slideshows. If something's bothering you, these things are captivating. And you go back in time, and there you sit and you get your mind off of everything. I think it's just wonderful. We really appreciate you, Roger.
Thank you.
This is Wilburn Jimmy Hall saying so long.